Hey, sports fans, welcome back to another episode of Bucky Sports Show. I'm Bucky. We're going to talk this evening about the men's Final Four, women's Final Four, and a little bit of the Masters here. Let's start with game one of the men's Final Four, though. We had the Florida Gators versus Auburn. Florida was a 79-73 winner. In that game, you had Walter Clayton Jr. as 34, and Elijah Martin was 17, and Thomas Hogg came off the bench with 12. For Auburn, you had Baker Mazzara with 18. You had Broom with 15. You had Jones with 10. Florida trailed 46-38, but as Florida does all tournament long, they went on their run. They won the second half 41-27. And this was just a fantastic game down the stretch. Florida defensively, they out rebounded Auburn 39-30. They created 14 turnovers. They really just controlled what Houston was going to. They played a good, solid defensive effort there in the second half. Anytime you can hold Auburn's offense to 27 points, you've done a really nice job. And then they were creating points off of turnovers, fast break dunks and layups, and that's how they ended up with their 41 there. They just ran, and it was a nice victory for them. Game two was Houston versus Duke. Houston was a 70-67 winner. Houston was down 14 at one point in the second half. That is the largest comeback in Final Four history. In that game, we had Cryer led Houston with 26 points. You had Sharp with 16. You had Roberts with 11. For Duke, you had Flagg with 27 and Kneppel with 16. Houston defensively, they did a really nice job of saying Flagg and Kneppel can have theirs. No one else is going to do anything. Houston out rebounded Duke 42-31. 11 more rebounds. That's an impressive amount of rebounds margin. And then defensively down the stretch, when Houston came back, it was all about the chaos that Houston's press created. Duke, I don't know if Duke was flustered by it, if they weren't prepared for it, but they could not handle that Houston press and the chaos it was creating. But a fantastic finish. I was hoping to see a Cooper Flagg, Walter Clayton Jr. championship game. Unfortunately, that did not happen. But boy, did that championship game live up to the hype. Last night we have Florida winning the championship game 65-63. Scoring wise, Richard led the way with 18 for Florida. Alex Condon with 12. Walter Clayton Jr. with 11. Houston defensively did a fantastic job on Clayton. He did not have an open shot most of the night. However, he found other ways to help Florida win. He had 5 rebounds, 7 assists. Scoring for Houston, Cryer had 19, and no one else was in double digits. Florida did a nice job of shutting down what Houston does. Defensively, or not defensively, but rebounding wise, Florida actually out-rebounded Houston 40-39. If you can win that battle against Houston and limit their offensive rebounds, you're going to give yourself a chance. I don't know how many second chance points that Houston scored, but they had 15 offensive rebounds, so they did get their share of offensive rebounds, but Florida did not let them capitalize on that very often. Florida just played a fantastic game. Walter Clayton Jr., magnificent. But Will Richard is the guy I want to talk about. This dude was 5 of 10 from the field, 4 of 7 from 3-point range, 4 of 4 from the free throw line, 18 points. He had 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, and he had one of the biggest defensive stops of the entire tournament there with about a minute to go. He put his hand in the lane. He was able to knock the ball off of Cryer's leg, which gave Florida the ball. They were able to capitalize and hit 1 out of the 2 free throws that they received from that. Just a fantastic defensive stand, and then he was in the mix of creating the chaos on the next stand, that final possession Houston had where they didn't get a shot off. That was just a fantastic possession defensively for Florida. Houston was going for the win. They were going for the 3-pointer to win the game. But when come crunch time, Richard and Clayton Jr., they created their own chaos. Clayton did a nice job of jumping out at the shooter. The shooter either had to drop the ball to where he couldn't touch it or travel. And he chose to drop the ball, and then Condon jumped on top of it. And that was it. Your Florida Gators 2025 national champions. I was able to watch. Florida is probably the second most team I watched this year behind Indiana State. Just a really fun group to watch play. I really, really enjoy how Florida plays, and I really like their coach. Golden's just a fantastic coach. He recruits the type of players that want to play at Florida. That's what he looks for. He looks for guys that can play, that can fit his system, that want to be Florida Gators. And every other coach in the country should take note of that, because they played with passion every time I watched them play. I didn't watch every game of them this season, but I watched several in their SEC conference games, and I enjoyed watching the Florida Gators this year. Just a fantastic team, and even in the championship game, talked about the run they went on there against Houston, or not Houston, against Auburn in the second half. Florida down 12. They didn't rattle. It didn't shake them. I knew they would go on that run. I think they knew they would go on that run, and they just found ways to scrap out victories time after time after time this year, and just great team, well coached. Coach Golden is fantastic. Again, congratulations to the Florida Gators, your 2025 national champions. Let's move on to the women's tournament. These games were not as exciting. South Carolina, again, they kind of got off to a slow start. That's kind of been their MO in the games I've watched of them in this tournament. Against IU, they were down at the end of the first quarter. It was a 2 or 3 point game at halftime. And then the second half, they just come out and they just dominate it. And that's what they did with Texas in their first game on Friday night. They were down 1 at the end of the first quarter. They were up 3 at halftime, and then they outscored Texas 20-9 in the third quarter, and just blew that away. The first half was good was a good half of basketball. Second half was just all South Carolina. Um, First half was fun to watch. Second half, if you're a South Carolina fan, it was probably enjoyable to watch, but I am not, and I did not. They put on a show, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of boring, and I checked out and started watching some baseball for a little bit. Um, Game two, UConn versus UCLA. I really thought this would be a better game than what it was. This was UConn from the tip. They outscored UCLA 23-13, and they did not let up. The second quarter, they outscored them 19-9. The third quarter was really the only close quarter. It was 18-15, and then the fourth quarter is 25-14. So UConn outscored UCLA by 10, 11 points in 3 out of the 4 quarters there. They put on a show. Again, if you're a UConn fan, you probably enjoyed the game. I'm not, but I did stay up and watch it. But I'll be honest, I think AZ Fudd kind of makes UConn go a little more than what Paige Beckers does. She is, and don't get me wrong, Paige Beckers going to be number 1 pick in the WNBA, but AZ Fudd was 7 of 12 from the field when Paige Beckers was 7 of 13. Paige Beckers was 0 of 3 from 3-point range. AZ Fudd was 3 of 5. Fudd had 19. Beckers had 16. Even Sarah Strong came in, and she's 9 of 13 from the field, 4 of 6 3-point range, and had 22 points of her own. You know, this is just a team that is so deep that you pick your poison on who you want to try and stop, and someone else just steps up. And UCLA didn't have an answer. They had Lauren Betts, who was 11 of 18 from the field. She ended up with 26 points. But when you score 51 and your leading score is at 26, no one else did anything. She literally had over half their points. So, again, UConn defensively just put on an absolute show. And then their championship game, I really thought this would be a fantastic game as well. I really thought this was probably 2 top 5 defenses in the country, if not the 2 best defenses in the country. But again, South Carolina kind of got off to a slow start. UConn was up 19-14 at the end of the first. They continued that with a 17-12 advantage in the second. Then the third, UConn just kind of flexed their muscle. They outscored 26-16 in the third. Fourth quarter is 2017. UConn was your 82-59 winner. This was Gino Oriema's 12th national championship overall. Again, you talk about UConn's depth, and Sarah Strong, 10 of 15 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3-point range, 24 points. AZ Fudd, 9 of 17 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3-point range, 24 points. Paige Beckers, 5 of 14 from the field, 17 points. And UConn was 18 of 21 from the free throw line. You had Paige Beckers, 7 of 7, Fudd, 5 of 5, Strong, 2 of 2. So their main players were not missing free throws. And you know, they out-rebounded a big South Carolina team. They won the turnover battle. They just outplayed South Carolina in every facet of the game. I really did not expect that. I really thought this would be a much closer game than what it was. But UConn dealt with some injuries early in the season, and boy, when they got healthy, they are probably best team in the country, and I think they proved that Sunday afternoon. So congratulations to the UConn women, your 2025 national champions. Let's go to golf here, and let's talk about the Masters that's coming up here. This might be something I try jumping on at the end of each round here and kind of talking about. So I kind of want to give some things here. Your odds. You have Scotty Scheffler plus 475 to win. He is your favorite. Rory McIlroy with plus 625, and then you have Colin Morikawa and John Rahm at 14 to 1. Really, the Masters kind of sets up to where you can have a long shot, but I wouldn't take them to win necessarily. I would take them as a top 5. Like when you get down to a Cameron Smith or a Jason Day that's 85 to 1 and their top 5 they're a 12 to 1, or Cameron Smith is 60 to 1. He's a plus 900 for a top 5. Plus 380 for top 10. Those guys down in that range, that's where you can make your money on this tournament. It's not necessarily to win, but your top 5s and your top 10s. And there always seems to be someone that's unexpected to be in top 5 and pushing the leader. But this also sets up for someone like a Angel Cabrera or a Bubba Watson that's way down in the bottom at 750 to 1 or 600 to 1 to make the cut. Just to make the cut. Bubba Watson's a plus 120. And Angel Cabrera is not even, he doesn't even have odds on this side I'm looking at to make the cut. But that's where Augusta is fantastic, because your past champions know the course so well. They can manage it for 2 days, but they can't manage it for 4. That Saturday, Sunday kind of just wears on them, and they fall out there just a little bit. With that being said, though, my pick would be Patrick Cantlay. He's 35 to 1 to win. He's a plus 600 top 5. I think he is definitely top 5, and with his odds, I would put some money on him to win the whole thing. He has been playing well here of late, well, outside of the last hole at the Texas Open. But he had a top 5 at the Genesis. He tied for 12th at Sawgrass. He had a bad last round there at the Valero Texas Open. He had a 67 in there. There's just something about him. I feel like he's going to have a good week. I could be wrong. I've been wrong a lot of times before. I'll be wrong a lot of times again. But we'll see. Sorry about that, folks. I had some internet issues there. If you're watching this, that's why you're seeing me on a different background here. Hopefully everything gets uploaded and I'm not just redoing this for nothing. Anyway, like I was saying, Patrick Cantlay, I like him to win the Masters. And I am going to try and do a round every night afterwards. But we will see how the weekend progresses. With that being said, give us a follow, subscribe, like, review, comment, all that fun stuff. If you have anything you'd like to discuss, give us an email at buckysportsshow@gmail.com. Again, that's buckysportsshow@gmail.com. See you next time.